Welcome to the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. I'm Adam Lang. In August last year, we spoke with Anthony J. James, better known as AJ, about marketing, consulting in COVID lockdowns, and the power of social media, especially the professional network of LinkedIn. At that time, AJ was one of the few people on LinkedIn with over 1 million followers. Now, AJ has over 2.6 million LinkedIn followers, and he's the founder of Influencer Active, the world's first business influencer marketplace, and it is growing. At Fear and Greed, we love stories of new businesses, innovators and entrepreneurs having a go, and I wanted to find out more about Influencer Active. AJ, welcome back to Fear and Greed.
It's great to be here, Adam. Thanks for having me back.
It's a pleasure. AJ, many of our listeners will know of sporting and entertainment influencers on social media, such as Cristiano Ronaldo, Taylor Swift, Australia's own Chris Hemsworth, and Kim Kardashian.
Mm-hmm.
Many sell their services so consumer brands can reach their Instagram followers. How does this influencer market work?
Look, you've mentioned all the big ones, Adam. Absolutely. They're all well known. And I think they all fall into this category called celebrity. They're all celebrity influencers. So the way the market basically works is you go out and you engage as a brand, you engage an agency because you can't reach these people. It's very hard to get hold of Kim Kardashian on the phone or direct email. So you'll go through an agency, you'll go through an agent, you'll submit your brief, you'll submit your budget, and the celebrity influencer will make the decision whether they want to work with you or not. If they choose to work with you, then you'll need to stump up the fees that they like to charge for that single post. Somebody like Kim Kardashian will charge anywhere between $300,000 to $500,000 USD for one Instagram post.
Wow.
And then they'll make that post for you. So it's a traditional model in the way that typically agencies work, but there's very much a middleman between you as a brand and the celebrity themselves. And it's very much in the B2C or the business to consumer perspective. As you said, they're out there promoting sunglasses and handbags and cosmetics and weight loss solutions.
So you've mentioned some of the big names and numbers there, but how big is the social media influencer business globally?
Adam, it's massive. 2016, it was about a $1.7 billion industry. 2021, Statista has forecast it to be a $13.8 billion industry.
Okay.
And the majority of that $13.8 billion, the vast majority, is in the business to consumer space, engaging celebrities.
So that's 5 times in 5 years.
Correct. And it's only forecast to grow 50% year on year from this point forward.
Okay.
And that trend sort of makes sense when you look at the rise of the number of, if you like, influencer agencies and influencer platforms that are growing every year. 2019, I saw a report recently that said there was over 1,100 brand new influencer agencies and influencer platforms that came to market, that opened, that offered these sorts of engaging celebrity services.
So it's grown enormously and it's going to continue. Are there particular areas or sectors that are more likely to use influencers? You know, for example, is it purely disposed to fashion, food, travel? There are a few that come to mind, but are there others?
Look, there are others, but I think the importance here is to start looking at a little bit of segmentation. From a business to consumer, a B2C perspective, I like to sort of couch it in this way, that there are 20% of brands out there today. We know those brands. These are the big brands. These are the likes of Levi's, Coca-Cola. Am I allowed to mention brand names
Sure.
on your podcast?
We love businesses here.
Louis Vuitton. These are the big brands, the 20% who actively and regularly use influencers as part of their marketing spend. If we look at the 80% of the market, and the 80% of the market predominantly is the small to medium businesses out there who've never considered using influencers as part of their marketing mix to amplify their marketing messages. That's where the industries and the brands that use influencers become very interesting. So what we've noticed with Influencer Active, being we are business people, none of us are celebrities, what we're finding is it's brands in technology, innovation, construction, real estate. Brands that don't necessarily align well to celebrity influencers that have started engaging our business influencers.
So that makes sense. The big international consumer brands are the biggest ones in this space. Has COVID had any impact on the social media influencer business?
Look, I think it's only accelerated. It's what's driving a lot of the growth within consumer brands wanting to engage celebrities, because social media platforms are more and more important as part of their marketing mix. And brands have worked out on average that for every dollar that they invest in influencer marketing, they're generating about $6, $7 in return on their spend.
That's a good return.
It's not a bad return. But again, for the small to medium businesses who know they need to use social media to get their message out there, to reach global audiences, to amplify their marketing activities, there's really been no channel for them to engage influencers.
Stay with me, AJ. We'll be back in a minute. I'm talking to Anthony J. James, better known as AJ, founder of Influencer Active. Well, let's talk about Influencer Active now, because that's what's caused you to found this business. Mm-hmm. Why hasn't business-to-business influencing been done before? Was it that no one really had the reach? Did it just not reach that level of maturity? What was it?
It's a fascinating question, and one that I reflect on quite often. And look, if I tell you a little bit about my story, back in September, around the time when I met with you guys and spoke with you last time, I had that about 1.4 million followers. And I realized at the time that on these business platforms, I knew lots of other names, lots of other people that had 500,000, 700,000, 1 million followers as well. They were all names I knew, but they weren't household names. None of them had been in movies, been in music videos, been on television, etc., but had significant circles of influence, had significant networks. And they were all business people, from retailers to executive search consultants. So over the course of 5, 6, 7 years, quietly under the radar, what we had been doing was building significant networks of influence with significant impact. If you looked at some of their posts on platforms like LinkedIn and Twitter, getting anywhere between 500,000 to 9 million engagements on a piece of content. So at the same time, we had the emergence of some of these massive, if I mentioned Cameo as an example, some of these massive consumer celebrity influencer platforms. And what I noticed in the market was all these other agencies were opening, basically copying the same models. They were all undertaking that same model. And what I realized was there was that massive gap in the market to say, where do these small to medium businesses go to engage business influencers, people who work in their industry? So why it hadn't happened up until that point in time, I don't really have the answer to, Adam, but I realized very quickly there was definitely a different model. I went out and pitched the idea to a couple of the business influencers out there that I knew very well, and it certainly resonated and it certainly struck a chord with them. I also spoke to a couple of brands as well who said, this is what we've been looking for. Typically, we go out and try and negotiate a deal with somebody. It's very difficult. If there was a platform, a marketplace, somewhere we could go, that the uptake was there. And Influencer Active was born out of that. We are all very active influencers on our social media channels. We spend a lot of time building those networks. But now, a brand in construction, you might be out there making construction equipment or be in real estate, you can engage somebody with 1 million plus followers in their network that actually works in your industry.
So as you've worked in this field for a relatively short now, but with significant growth, are you finding that businesses are more wary of influencers than a normal consumer proposition might be?
Very much so, very much so.
Okay.
Because there's been a shift, probably driven by COVID as well, in now looking at that return on investment. Looking at, if I'm spending $300,000 on a post, let's say a single post, selling a product of a value of, say, $100, my ROI and the sales that I need to make need to be pretty significant. If I can go to a business influencer, let's say the same sort of product, but that business influencer on average, let's say, is charging $100 for a post. Some of the feedback that I've got is from some brands that we spend more than that on coffee in a month. The risk is obviously a lot lower, but the ROI requires, for instance, one sale instead of maybe 3,500 sales.
Yeah, gotcha. So let's talk about those clients to the extent that you can. What sort of feedback are you getting from them? And can you see that some campaigns are working better than others? What's driving that?
Yes, definitely, Adam. And I can give you some real examples because I think a lot of the brands are very pro-influencer active and have actually come out publicly with statements as well. It's interesting because a lot of these brands know they need help with marketing and they've never really known where to turn to. So we may be talking about an organisation that has, say, 20,000 to, let's say, 100K to spend on marketing. And typically it's the owner or the CEO that is taking control of that. They know they need to market their services. And up until now, they've really only had things like Google AdWords or SEO to spend their money on and hope that a $22 click-through will get them a sale.
Okay.
Now in being able to engage a global influencer, what we found is one campaign turns into 3 or 4 campaigns for a brand where they allow the influencer to use their voice because most of us know our audiences very well. So we're not a media agency. There is no middleman between the brand and the influencer. So typically the brand provides the media or the content that they've had developed and they let the influencer put that into their voice with a call to action that may be clicking through to their website, signing up for a webinar, looking at their product. But we're talking in many cases about high value products. So as a great example, if I can share with you, I had a construction firm in the US, little plug for them, T-Rex Hammers, a little homegrown business.
Great business name.
A great business name, right? And when you look at their product, you'll know why it's called a T-Rex.
Okay.
Because it's a device that clips onto the front of a little bobcat for construction. It allows you to break up massive slabs of concrete, but pick them up in big slabs and drop them onto the back of a truck. This is a big investment for a construction firm. Small operation, no marketing people, and the CEO stumbled across Influencer Active. He looked at the listings, and at that time I had a single post listing of $120. So they booked me, they gave me the video, and in the words of the CEO, the uptake was off the charts. The requests that they were getting, the inquiries they were getting for a fairly expensive piece of construction equipment, but more importantly, it led to sales for them. And as he said, $120, we spend more than that on coffee at a month at Starbucks. The risk was low, but the uptake and the inquiries were more than they'd ever had before. And that's what's driving. We found over the last 7 months that the repeat business from brands is around 95%. Once they've used an influencer once, they then spread that strategy over other influencers, some in their industry and some outside their industry.
So you've started something here, AJ, in Australia that has got global application and is gaining scale. Congratulations. So I know that this is still a new business, but I'm sure that you've learned a lot already in your 7 continuous months of operation. For anyone considering business-to-business influencer marketing, can you give our audience some tips for doing it well?
Absolutely, and it really is a big one. So, in 7 months, we now have 193 registered influencers across every industry vertical. Our influencer reach across the platform is well over 260 million people on business networks because most of us have C-suite senior executives as part of our networks. I think some of the real tips that I could give, Adam, is let the influencers do what they know how to do. And what I mean by that is we know our audiences. We've built networks of 1 million, 2 million plus people within our sphere of influence because we have a voice and it's a voice that they follow. We've built respected, trusted voices within our networks. I'll give you an example of, say, video content. The attention span of people on social media today is short. I would hesitate to say that the 8-second attention span is well and truly gone. We're talking more like a 3-second attention span.
Wow.
So if you have a piece of video or a piece of media that spends the first 17 seconds with a nice fly-in of your logo and your website and a nice sting, if you like, at the beginning of your video, you've lost the viewer already. Those sorts of media assets, you need to get to the point, and you need to get to the point very, very quickly. You've got 3 seconds to grab their attention. It's the same as copy. They don't have time to read a couple of paragraphs of copy. You need to hit that headline hard and fast, get to the point quickly, get them engaged in your content, and that's where you can then start the conversation. The other part that I advise all the brands that engage me is to engage, to answer questions when people comment on your post, to engage with them, like their comments, answer questions, provide additional information in the comments to keep that conversation going. And, you know, as far as 2 big tips, they would be the 2 big ones. Most influencers will also work with the brands to give them those tips and that advice as to what works well. You know, another big one is don't make up hashtags. Made up hashtags, you know, business platforms are not like the Instagrams of the world where you can attract people to hashtags. If there are no followers to a hashtag, don't use that because you'll only get exposure to those few people who follow that hashtag. So unlike celebrity influencers in many cases, our influencers engage with the brands to help them get that maximum attention and attraction to the post that they're putting out there for them.
AJ, they are some great tips. So thank you so much for talking to Fear and Greed.
You're more than welcome. And as you said, I encourage everybody to jump onto the marketplace and start engaging today.
That was Anthony J. James, better known as AJ, founder of Influencer Active. This is the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. Join Sean Aylmer every morning for the full Fear and Greed podcast with all the business news you need to know. I'm Adam Lang. Enjoy your day.